2. All right, hello and welcome to our membership circle. It is November 25th. This is our second official weekly membership circle session. Today we're going to be building off of our conversation in our last week's session. And I think that I'll probably kick us off with a draft of a agenda, get a sense for if anybody's got anything you want to add to it. And if we get aligned in that regard, then we'll just run through the agenda.
Leah.
Is there anything else that anyone would like to say before we get into agenda review?
I just want to comment. Christopher, is your day like being on calls the entire day or just 90% of it?
You know, I try and keep a balance, Brad. I try and keep a balanced life. My goal is to do less and de-stress and depressurize and find the highest leverage actions.
All right. It's all good.
Yeah.
Kind of concerned that the last 5 times I've seen you, you've had that same shirt on.
I've got a couple of them.
Oh, okay. You are changing?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm a little worried.
Yeah. And you might have one too one day, Wayne.
Really? So is that a party shirt?
Could be.
Okay. I'll stay tuned.
Yeah, stay tuned. All right. So moving over into our agenda review, I'm going to share my screen just for a second. And so at the top of this running agenda, I've got a running list of membership experience optimization ideas. So this is a space, like a parking lot of areas. They're not necessarily agenda items. They're just capturing some of the really important issues that we've been surfacing. So a deeper integration with the membership ethos into the network is something that Brad brought forward last time, just like how we make that more prominent and more integrated, I think is a wonderful question for the circle to muse on. And I don't see that as a core priority for this call, but you might, and we can just kind of keep our eye on it and start to talk about it and think about it more and more. In addition to that, we've got the clear articulation of real membership benefits that people experience. And that's something I want to talk about a little bit in this call. For the membership experience aspect of this call, I would like to actually start our content by each of you contemplating and sharing in like a minute or two the real benefit and value to your life that membership has created and why you're a part of anything, why you're here on this call, why you want other people to experience membership. So I want to get super personal and use each of us as part of our market research process to understand like how to really articulate the benefit, not just like from Central Org or from the founder's vision of the benefit, but from the actual benefit experienced by each person on this call. Next, I'd like to talk a little bit on our members resource page on our website. I want to mention the idea of a watch party and see if there's anything else we want to talk about from a membership experience standpoint. Then I want to go into our membership expansion, which is the second half of our membership circle. I want to talk about the ambassador circle and what actions can be taken there. I want to talk about our series episode promotion as a core facet of membership expansion. And I want to talk about the goal of developing a membership goal. So that's the core agenda that I'm tracking that I think will manage us in our hour really well and give us a lot of very interesting things to talk about. Is there anything that either of you are thinking that should be included in that agenda, either in the membership experience half or the membership expansion half?
This may not be specific to your question there, Christopher, but I'm wondering of the 125 plus whatever the membership number is, how active do we feel those people have been, can be, and should be Are they active a little bit, or a lot of them not doing much of anything?
Well, we have developed a membership activity metric that is an aggregation of multiple sub-metrics. So we can actually go through our entire membership list and rate people's activity level in various different domains, from how many emails they open from us, to their participation in our Facebook group, to their participation actually in a role or taking on tasks or being involved in various projects. So you can look at the membership base based upon a score of engagement from 1 to 10. And we've got people in every one of those tiers. And I think we will always have people in those tiers, and they're tiers that we should get very used to experiencing. And then our question becomes how to entice people to move deeper into the engagement tiers, right? The people that aren't on our Facebook group and aren't opening up our emails, how do we actually reach out to them and say, hey, get on our Facebook group and read some of our emails? Or how are the people that are doing those two things but aren't maybe commenting or sharing or engaging in our group, or maybe they're not talking about One Nation in their life? How do we get them to kind of ratchet up to higher level engagement? And those that are talking about it or sharing, but aren't showing up to like working together and team calls and taking actions and really being a part of the action, how do we entice them to be able to step up further? So we need to think about it kind of like a conveyor belt that shuffles people up into higher levels of engagement. And we are the center of that engagement. We are the highest engaged members that are not only just reading the communications and talking about it, but they're actually showing up consistently to do work to make it real. And that's the core.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else as far as members agenda suggestions? All right, let's go ahead and go over to Benjamin. Benjamin, you want to kick us off with a little bit of a high level on project management and governance stuff?
Yes, let's see here. Hi, everyone. I'm a little bit groggy. We had a big push for some media production last night, so I'm still waking up today. This is the beginning of my day. Yeah, so just at a very high level, we have been exploring ways to systematize our organizational structure and our participation in that structure. So we are looking at two different ways of creating those systems. The first is governance. So we're exploring the use of the Holacracy platform and the tools that they provide to make the participation in that governance model very streamlined and accessible. And so we're still in the research phase where we're exploring how best to integrate that into what we're doing. But the idea is to create a system where everyone's roles and accountabilities are very clearly outlined. We're able to streamline decision-making by having tracking of all of the updates in the field in real time that then get processed in these really hyper efficient meeting structures that are facilitated by the software platform. So over the course of the next few member circles, we're going to be going deeper in depth in what that might look like and how to onboard everyone into that system. And then the second that we're exploring is a project management tool called ClickUp. And what this is going to allow us to do is to collaborate at scale. And so we're getting that system also dialed in so that as tasks emerge, they're able to be posted and organized in such a way that anyone will be able to jump in and take action to support the collective. And there'll be a very clear place to track everything that's happening in the field and make it really easy for people to participate. If they feel a desire to give any of their gifts to the field, there'll be a really easy way to track what's needed. And there'll be a really nice relationship between our governance and our project management, where we're going to be sensing what needs to happen together through our governance, and then we're going to be actualizing that sense making through our project management. So both tools are require a little bit of nuanced attunement. So we're in the process of onboarding ourselves now at the core level, so that we will be able to facilitate everyone on this call eventually onboarding, and then training you guys to become trainers so that we can have an entire field that's able to work with these tools effectively.
Benjamin, that was extremely well articulated. Thank you.
May I ask a question of Benjamin?
Yes.
Why did you guys choose ClickUp? I mean, it's obviously one that I've never heard of in a sea of others that are very well known, like Asana, for instance. And I was hoping to bring the CEO of Asana, who's a friend of mine, and I think you know him, Christopher. He donated $20 million to Hillary Clinton's campaign in 2015 or 16. I'm sure he wants that, would love that money back. But I'm just curious, if we were to approach someone like that, I'm just curious why you made that choice. That's all. What are the benefits of that platform versus? Are you willing to share that?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a couple factors. I think it was the ability to have access to a certain feature set with the way that their pricing tier works. The free model provides everything that we need to create a really efficient system.
Okay.
And there's some trade-offs to the way that their pricing model works. So once we pass a certain threshold, the cost will go up significantly. But for the sort of bootstrap stage that we're in now, it provided everything that we needed at no fixed cost. But I'm sure if there were ways to, I think we'd be. I mean, Christopher has been really devoting himself to onboarding himself into the platform, so that's definitely another consideration. But we are, I think, at an early enough stage where having a meaningful conversation about it right now would be a good idea.
I don't have a horse in the game. I'm just a horse in the race.
What's most important is that we're developing a culture of digitized project management, and we'll use the best tool that we can identify that works for us. And if we ever need to migrate, we can migrate. And ClickUp has really served as a strong, a very robust, powerful tool. For the time being.
All right, I trust you guys have looked at them all. Thank you.
And just kind of piggyback off of what Benjamin's saying is, this parlays in the membership conversation, the membership experience, because we talked last time about like a platform where members can come together and interact with each other. And we decided to focus on the elements of the platform that are actually most functionally useful to the organization as well, not just things that are maybe peripheral to the most pressing needs of the organization's vitality and viability. And so by actually using a governance platform and a project management platform as our platforms for deeper social interaction and interactivity, it meets all those needs. So we feel like we're making a lot of progress on that initial impetus. So what I'd love to do now is take about, hello and welcome, Sadiq. What I'd love to do right now is take probably about a minute or so for you guys to close your eyes and take a breath or two. And the question is, what is the real benefit you have experienced as a result of being a member of One Nation? So I know that each of you care about the mission. I know each of you care about myself and supporting this work that I've said yes to. I know there's a lot of that in the field, but I know each of you have been individually impacted and benefited by your membership. And I would love to take this next chunk as we're thinking about how to think about the membership experience to actually inventory our real experience as well. And I'm going to put this on speaker view here. And it's possible, with your permission, of course, after the fact, that we could potentially use this video in telling the story of the benefit that members are beginning to experience. So we'll give you another 30 seconds with me not talking. And then if one of you feels ready to come in, please come in and share that.
I'll start. I'm not sure if this fits the parameters of your question, but for me, I gave up on politics many years ago in this country, many years ago. Thought politics were not the answer, didn't want anything to do with it, and didn't have anything to do with it. I voted for 10 or 12 years, and I found something that fit my values for bringing forth what I felt was something that could uh, bind the wounds in this nation, not only the nation, but the planet. And that goes back to my feeling that it took me years to get to that. And I've said this many times standing in front of groups. I don't care if you're rich or poor. I don't care if you're black, white, brown, red. I don't care if you're straight or gay. I don't care if you're a number of divides that we have in this country. I personally believe that in order to accomplish what needs to be done in this country and on the planet, that we all need to come together and recognize we are all one. And for the first time in my life, I've seen a political party that can bring that together and make it happen. And that's a real benefit to me, and not only to me, but the country and the planet. I feel very strongly about that.
Thank you, Wayne, for sharing that. And there was a gentleman at the very, very early stages of One Nation, like back in 2018, we were just talking about it. And he said, with One Nation, another aspect of my life can come into integrity. He said, I don't feel in integrity to participate in the political system with the existing options available. And I also don't feel an integrity to completely abdicate my participation. And so he was in a bind of just like couldn't find a way to be in integrity. And so with the advent of One Nation, it then unlocked a new way in which his life can come into a greater level of holistic integrity. And I hear you basically essentially speaking in that same thing.
Very similar.
Yeah. Thank you very much for your share.
I'll go. Yeah, thank you everybody for what One Nation is, and the value has been very personal for me. It's allowed me to survive in a world that I don't often understand how to make work for myself. So Christopher and Sophia took me on as the paid administrative staff just about a year ago, and been through that opportunity, so much has unfolded. It's been a place to bring my gifts and my ideas and just play around with what might be with other people who understand the things that I see. That I don't have a local community that talks about this stuff. I've tried, and they either don't get it or don't care. And so having this network of beyond just business, but like-minded people who are all badasses, by the way, and who are now like friends of mine. Like, I consider all of you to be friends of mine, and it's so exciting to learn and meet and grow with everybody who comes into the field. So deep sense of personal expansion and survival needs being met, as well as inspiration and trust, and just like, let's do this.
Thank you, Cody. It was wonderful.
Yeah.
I would happily go next. Hi. So there may be some overlap here, but from my standpoint, affinity is number one, to engage with other like-minded souls who are seeing the world in a very similar way than I do. It's hard to find out there right now, but the great awakening is happening. and I'll bring that back in another conversation. But the Great Awakening, I want to sort of address that down the road here. Secondly, is the obvious networking and connections and the getting to know people more deeply. That is something that I, the retreat was wonderful. I felt honored to be there. For me, physical events and these chapters are going to be a way, a container by which the real value is harvested and harnessed from this network, where people get to meet others in a container of trust and encouragement, possibility. So number one, affinity. Number two, the network and the connections. Number three is what I would call co-creation. And I've, sort of made up my mind. I'm no longer interested in doing anything alone. And if I don't find collaborators in it, I'm doing it anymore. I'm not willing to carry that. Like if Christopher was just doing it on himself, it would not quite be possible for this to happen. Sorry about this noise. I've got a lot of construction outside right now. So thirdly was the co-creation, the co-creative possibilities, whether it's just being on a membership committee or whether it's producing an event for One Nation. I'm very excited about the possibility of co-creation that happens. And fourth, is what I would call, like Wayne, I gave up on politics. I haven't voted in over 20 years. I just thought the whole political system, and the more and more I know about it, the more I realize it's such a farce. It doesn't even exist. It really does not exist. There is no empowerment. So for me, One Nation is an opportunity to actually not be cynical about politics, but actually to look at how we can actually make this better, and creating a system that works for everybody. And then finally, last would be the kind of material benefits of being a part of a network where, wow, I get free tickets to things, or I get discounts on other things, or I get access to information that no one else has. So it's the material benefit that also interests me. So those are the five things: affinity, network, co-creation, political activism, and tangible material benefit. Okay.
Thank you, Brad. Thank you very much. That was
Good.
rich.
Cool. Sadiq.
Hey everyone, apologies for being late. I think for me, I wrote in the chat some of the highlights, but I think for me, what it boils down to is I consider myself a political being. Like ever since I was young, very interested in politics, in community engagement and social engagement. Was a political science major in college, involved in international affairs, blah, 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 all that stuff. There came a point for me where there felt like a necessary forced disengagement. And the best way that I would describe it is actually comparable to my experience in what I'll call the so-called peace movement. And I'm going to share the two side by side because I think the story is very palpable, and I'm hearing the story from a lot of other people as well as it relates to One Nation and other systems on the planet. Is while I was involved in the global peace movement, there came a point where I just couldn't do it anymore. Not because I no longer believed in creating a global culture of peace or what have you, but what I began to see was that the so-called peace movement didn't feel like a peace movement. It felt like an anger movement and an agenda movement. My pathway, what have you. And I needed something that was in integrity, in alignment. And I had this same experience with politics. Like I was involved in the Green Party, I was involved in different things. There came a point though it actually wasn't truly aligned. What One Nation is bringing to the table as far as their orientation of politics, without the specific focus on this agenda or that agenda, but that's an orientation of a win-all politic. It's an orientation for collaborative politics. It's, basically how do we, regardless of our viewpoints, engage in healthy political discourse is the anchor point for me that feels the sexiest as it relates to One Nation. And the people that tends to attract, like Cody was saying, off the charts, because they're whole systems thinkers. They're moving beyond their own perspective. And if I can find conversation and time with people who are willing to move beyond their own perspective, that's where magic happens from my perspective.
Thank you, Sadiq. That was rich. If I just wrap my mind around it categorically, and this is not against anything you said because it was amazing, but it's essentially like, do you feel like there was any categorically specific things brought through, or do you think it's still in the zone of reclamation of political process and some of the things that have been said already, or do you feel like there's something else specific?
I've been an independent for now almost 15 years because I couldn't find a party that I could feel I truly belong to, and I've been wanting to for a long time because I experienced myself as a highly political being, but it was so, pardon my French, but fucking frustrating getting involved in different political parties because there wasn't the alignment. And so there's a sense of home, and there's a sense of I can activate and engage as part of me that has been waiting to not just do it as an independent, but to do it as a part of a collective, to do it as a part of a community. Does that answer your question? Yeah, that's solid. It's because I'm trying to create kind of buckets in my mind to kind of understand categorically what these things are coming in, and I feel like this kind of like reclamation of politics, reclamation of political participation, is the primary thing that you're pointing to in your own words and your own experience, and then that married with co-creative, collaborative possibilities, and then that kind of connected to developing relationships. These are kind of like the trifecta that I see pointing to, and then there's the material benefits that Brad mentioned as well. So thank you very much, and would just love to hear from the rest of you as well.
Yeah, it's a good exercise.
I can hop in. For me, participation in One Nation has been an expression of my dharma, of the purpose of my soul on the planet.
Good.
Similar to the stories that have been shared, I also felt a disillusionment with even some of the very activated spaces that I was in. The lack of holistic systems vision, the interrelatedness of all of these pieces. I always felt like I was seeking something greater that included and wove together synergistically all of these parts of me that I felt like I had to I was experiencing in these fragmented containers. And when I discovered One Nation, I discovered a context that allowed all of the parts of myself to come forward and be met in an integrated context that that allowed all of me to come forward, all of my gifts, all of my passions, all of my vision, in a container that wove it together in a way that I had never experienced before.
That was very powerful.
I love that Dharma piece. That's a big one.
Yeah, the statement about holism, I feel is really well stated, and it's one that I would just love for us to keep helping thousands and thousands and thousands of more people having that experience.
I want to bring back in the survival of the fittest definition that I've now told like 25 people since the retreat of, wow, I had an epiphany. Survival of the fittest isn't the big fish eating the little fish. It's us fitting into a synergistic, communal, collaborative culture where we are using our gifts, and through the power of fitting in, we create our survival, basically. I think that's an important reason for membership.
Yeah, I categorized that just now, Brad, as you were sharing it, as insight / epiphany / education, as kind of this like categorical bucket.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it could fit into Ben's Dharma thing too.
Yeah. The specific example you referenced, but just categorically, just people coming into the field and then walking away with novel insights they'd never had before, I think.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Seeing the playing field differently.
That's
good.
Let's keep moving.
I'd love to share.
Yeah. What are you getting out of membership?
It's a great question because I had never considered it. And I would say the thing that I'm getting out of membership is the realization of how many of us are out there. That to me is the coolest thing, that signal. There are people out there who are resonant with the message, and there's people out there who have energy to contribute, and there's people out there like Benjamin who are just ready to hop on in all of the ways that you are, and bring your gifts and bring your genius into the field of what we are co-creating. And so for me, it's this massive feeling of assurance, really, that we can do this because we're creating a synergistic network that is allowing us to connect with those who are out there, who are feeling the call and ready to respond.
That was really powerful. Thank you. I think you introduced a new category, which I'm now just kind of referencing as like faith / excitement / inspiration / confidence / enthusiasm / assurance.
Yeah, it's like hope.
Yeah, I was just going to say they kind of all come into hope, right? I really loved your use of the word assurance, right? That's very powerful, and thank you for sharing that. I think that was everyone, correct? Yep. I'll share that my primary benefit is feeling every day that goes by my ability to act proportionate to my care. So I care about everything. I care about addressing every single issue on earth at all scales, so that no rock is unturned as far as improving quality of life for all people and all life on earth. Every issue that creates a tremendous amount of suffering that is unnecessary, every single one of those causes me some amount of pain to not be able to address, and I care to address them all. And so One Nation, every day that goes by, I feel more and more like there's a system that I can participate in, and that if I just keep participating in the system, then the probability that over time we'll be able to develop a multi-million person complex adaptive system that's able to meaningfully address as many issues as we possibly can imagine, and see them all the way through in the rebirth of our societal systems. So that's my primary sense. It's actually a sense of relaxation that which I care about is viably progressing. Thank you very much for, Brad, are you trying to say something? You're muted.
Let me piggyback real quickly. The concept of security that I think Sophia referenced here. the concept, like the tribe, the early tribes is how people felt safe, right? They gathered in numbers. And if you were by yourself, good chance you'd get eaten by a dinosaur or something like that. But so they developed tribes as a way of keeping people safe. So I really feel like that security of knowing that you're part of something that has your back, I think it's important. And belonging goes along with that too. The sense of belonging to something that has your back. I don't know where that goes, if that's separate or not.
Let's just call that the section of our call. And I took some notes, and I feel like some really beautiful buckets emerged. And I feel like with those buckets, we can use those as a lens to look at other people's testimonials through and start to use the language that we are using ourselves to be able to talk about membership. And I will already, as a result of these last 15 minutes, talk about membership in a completely optimized way, just as a result of this little sample. And so the more as a membership circle that we can be asking this question to other members, which I'm actually really inspired to go and make a post asking this question on the membership group, unless somebody else, I guess, feels very inspired.
Are you going to do it as a survey?
I could do a first question that was fill in the blank style, and then potentially as the buckets start to really crystallize, maybe
rate their importance.
Yeah, maybe a month later, kind of like circle back around like with a poll style. But thank you for that that idea. So I'm really inspired to do that, and I think that part of what this group intelligence should be doing is asking that question really well, so that we're actually building off of real value as opposed to trying to ideate and manufacture our hypothetical value. And I think that we will create real value without contrivance, just by our very essence. We don't have to try. It just is what's happening as a result of being our pure essence. And then if we can be noticing that and then doubling down on developing value that's aligned with our essence as opposed to aligned with like a figment of an idea, then we'll be like in greater level of integrity, and we're building real value that like actually gets the job done and not just what we think members would want, kind of a thing. So anyways, feedback loops. So I want to move on the agenda to the next piece and talk about the member resource page. And this topic kind of primarily focuses over on use media. We launched the website, and their very first launch of the website was basically kind of like a long page full of descriptions of membership resources. And that was before we had any other sub pages. So that one page was like all the content. And what I think we need to do next is parse it apart so we make sure that each of those little sections has its own page. And that way what the membership resource page can be is kind of like a table or like a chart with like all the different things, so that you don't have to scroll and read in order to see the menu of options for membership, but that we're actually like making a menu and a table more accessible and referenceable. And then people can just click right on through, either right to the benefit or right to a page with additional information about that membership benefit or program or resource. So I feel like this element is a pretty high lever for the circle developmentally over the next month. How does that land for you, Sophia? And if anybody else is online and goes to the member resource page, do you have any other inputs on the topic?
I just think your statement was a good one. I think that's needed, and I think it's very efficient. People today don't have a lot of time. If they're looking for specifics, they can go there, find it easily, and I really like that.
I'd like to at least keep the option to kind of scroll through and have a holistic view of all the programs. Like I agree with having some kind of table and making it easily accessible and all that, but accommodating different styles of input, and maybe a newer member that isn't already familiar with what the programs are might just want to browse those paragraphs and get a sense of what they're interested in. So maybe that could be another one of the options is like, if you just want to see all of them on one page, click here. So, yeah.
I feel like, addressing the need for there to be greater clarity on what the different programs are is really the thing that we want to achieve with that web page, and then strategizing on how to best achieve that. Because I love the interactivity. This web page clearly just kind of got thrown together. There's definitely, arguably, a better way to present it and lay it out that's more clear. I'm almost imagining right now these like little icons at the top of the page where it's like each option just has this like really clean, simple little icon. So at a glance when you land, you can just see the smattering of value and offerings. And then from there, you can still scroll down. And I'm definitely a yes to figuring out how to make that page more engaging, more visually attractive. I think there's a lot of things we can do at a design level to improve that page. And let's start there.
Awesome. I would say that if we set a goal by the end of December to have that page rebirthed, then when we go to our launch, that element for people that are considering membership or that have just recently registered as members, that will have a more clear on-ramp to their participation. Are you open to stewarding that, Sophia, over the next month?
Yes.
Awesome. And I love the idea of the different icons, and I think that with Benjamin or maybe some other design artistic source, we could start to create our own set of icons that we can then use very powerfully. So I'm really aligned with the idea of iconifying each of our respective engagement opportunities. Okay, let's move on. That feels like a good step. And then, Sophia, you can just hold that going forward. Now you're kind of the holder of that. So just let the collective know any support you need, or any of the rest of the team members, what you feel like you need or want to be supported to get that done. Awesome. Okay, moving on. So a watch party concept was mentioned, and I feel like that is a pretty
Mm-hmm.
low-hanging fruit to create a pretty high amount of value. And this is integrating with our show, which I'm just about to record the first couple episodes of, and I can tell you these episodes are going to be epic. We have epic guests, and we have an epic vision for the content, and the content itself is like perfectly gripped to the One Nation context and the One Nation field.
Yeah.
So we can absolutely identify other documentaries, other podcasts that we want to bring into the field, and I think that is totally viable.
Good idea.
I think we can also consider just like the content that we're explicitly creating in service to this field, and that could be the most perfect match for some type of online or offline watch party that, you know, supports the benefit of education insights, supports the benefit of increased sense of connectivity, and some other things. So I just want to kind of like open that up just for a couple minutes.
Yeah.
Any thoughts about the watch party based on that?
Well, I want to speak. One of the benefits that I may have failed to mention was it was sort of in there, but more specifically, and I can't remember if it was Wayne or Cody, the ability to be able to converse with others who share or don't share like-mindedness. But that's what, as you know, I produced over 100 film screenings of documentary films with dialogues afterwards. And what I found was putting people in a room together not only gives people a chance to fully express themselves, but they get to hear about a particular issue from different angles. So it's an incredible educational venue for people to learn about an issue or a particular initiative and be able to see different points of view around it. And that's very valuable.
Yeah, so I'm getting that you're a big thumbs up for the idea conceptually.
Huge.
Do we feel like this is something that's a priority worth progressing?
Well, I think it'll give our chapter meeting some teeth at the beginning, because there's purpose to it. You know, like people feel like they're learning.
Those are fighting words for Josie, Brad. You keep talking about teeth when you've never been to a chapter meeting, and Josie's going to show up and pop you in the noggin.
Fortunately, she's not here, but I guess she's going to watch this on video.
So I don't think we need to make a statement polarizing the value of a chapter meeting, especially since the fact that you've never been to a chapter meeting. But beyond that element, I think that this question, it feels very hot. It feels like there's a lot of life around it, and I think that basically there's kind of some decisions to make, right? So one would be like One Nation content or outside content. That would be kind of one of the inquiries. And another inquiry would be, you know, how much we emphasize the digital watch party element so that everybody is invited and included without any logistical constraints, or how much we emphasize the community watch element, where we invite people to get together in one room, or if there's an elegant hybrid between the come together physically and the digital so that everyone can be included. So I think just kind of the method and the content, can we just look at those for a moment?
Can you clarify, is this separate than a chapter meeting? Maybe this isn't a chapter meeting. Is this different? Do you see it as different?
The conversation is wide open.
Okay.
One thing that I wanted to add is that within the Facebook watch party platform, which is quite robust as far as what's available for free on the internet to synchronize viewership, it is useful if we are screening content that we've created that we can post to our page. Because of the copyright restrictions, we couldn't like post The Matrix on a Facebook watch party group, but we could post our own original content. So as far as platform gripping, that seems to contribute to that question. I think there is a really elegant way to integrate the in-person and digital, where we can have digital screenings that then have follow-up within the embodied context, so that people who aren't in chapters can participate, and there's an active online dialogue that then is fodder for an in-person dialogue.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, my sense in feeling these out is that we emphasize the digital side, and then any tangible convening that happens is like a bonus on top of it. But if we emphasize the tangible side of things, so many members don't have like other members around, or, you know, maybe like that would be a harder barrier to entry. So I feel like we emphasize the digital, but like encourage people to invite other people to their homes, members or not, to participate in this online watch party together. And so we kind of get those both. And then I've never used or been a part of a Facebook watch party platform, but it sounds like it's got all the features you'd assume that it would have, right? We kind of press play at one time and everybody watches at the same time, and there's like a chat kind of a conversation element, and yeah. So I think that's pretty powerful, and that we can advertise that and we can attract people in. That can be a way to bring people into membership. So it's a really nice permeable layer between creating value for existing members while also creating an on-ramp for people that are member curious. Potentially end the watch parties with an invitation for people to register as members if they haven't registered yet. So that's all feeling really juicy, you know, and we'll have our first couple episodes of the show ready, you know, before we know it. So if we schedule the watch party for like mid-December or so, you know, we'd have a great piece of content ready for that show. And then maybe I don't know how the frequency that we do it, but we could just do one and go from there.
I'd like to add that I just feel a real synchronicity with this. My wife, Leah, is redirecting the focus of her business, and a watch party is a big part of that. So she's videoed a lot of things, putting them together, and we will be hosting watch parties and really like the concept.
Wow.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Sadiq wrote something on the chat, 12 different sectors, one a month. I like that.
Yep. Yeah, we can move through different sectors for sure, and that's the intent of the show. Will be covering vastly diverse sectors.
Yeah, I like that.
Um,
The reason that I put that in there, whether it's the 12 sectors of society model or some other holistic systems model, if part of what I understand One Nation's mission, vision to be is to present whole systems thinking, if we're actually modeling in cycles where we're bringing the attention to, look, we know it's a bit like kind of like what you were speaking to before, Christopher, as like you care for so much, but like you can't do it alone. You have to join a system in order to care and to allow that caring part to be expressed. To actually have a model that says, look, we can't cover it all in one show, but like what we can do is present a template that helps model and show what the background of this entire party is about, which is systems thinking. So we're actually going to create a template that continues to rotate and move around a holistic frame, and that's why I put it in there.
Sadiq, I really appreciate that. That was a really powerful insight for me just now. And it went meta to just the watch parties themselves, but actually how to think about the show and how to use that framework to say, like, here's the big sandbox, guys and girls. And today we're going to zoom in to here, but we know that everything's interconnected, but it's like, it just allows us to kind of move in and out there. So I really appreciate that. And then from a watch party standpoint, yeah, that would kind of be a no-brainer to like name the sector that we're going to look at. And so just check. Really, that was great, Sadiq. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to double click on that. I think it feels a little bit forced to structure the way that we roll out each episode in that framework, but I think using that as a container for the entire show, like you said, Christopher, I'm getting some visual cues of graphic elements that can be used to show the full wheel, and then each episode like opens up into a thematic area. And yeah, anyway, I just got creatively.
That's great. No, and we can create a Kumu map that maps all the shows by their category. So then you'd be able to interact with this kind of whole like visual display of how each respective show is plotted inside of a sector, and then you can click and kind of watch the episode. So all of that is just really rich. Let's keep moving on. My sense is that we're making a decision to pilot the watch party concept for one in December. Does everyone kind of feel like we're kind of co-sensing that?
Yes.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah, I mean, if not December, January, because December gets a little busy, but maybe we can tuck it in.
I mean, everything that we do is iterative, and all we need to do is like kind of do a thing so we can then observe the thing we did and then be that much better next time.
Good idea.
Yeah.
I'm also getting the hit that it could be a really great way to launch each episode, so that there's like a first look component to it where the community is really engaged, waiting for the next episode to come out, and that's the way that we launch each episode.
Yeah, I think that could absolutely be a best practice, and knowing that we'll have a couple a week, the frequency's high, but even if you have 7 people watching that first episode together, and as the network grows, that 7 becomes 17, becomes 37, and it'd be pretty frequent, but the chaotic nature could still justify it all maybe that way.
Is there a place that I can go to see a write-up on the concept for the party? What's
the show?
Yeah, because I haven't seen it. Is there somewhere I can go quickly to see? I can see that.
Kind of. I mean, it's mapped on the Miro map. I've got some documents about it. I don't have like the 101 document to give you the tip-to-toe overview.
Okay. Was that discussed today before I joined?
No. That's we have a whole circle dedicated to developing the show. You'll get the right information when you need it, for sure.
Okay,
Yep.
great.
Thank
Thanks.
you for your care on that one.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's keep our agenda moving. I think we're about to transition into the kind of second part, which is looking at membership expansion. Does anybody have any like red hot zingers to bring to this conversation around low hanging fruit for optimizing member experience before we move on?
Just to make sure that you get show notes together with each one as a best practice. That's a really nice way to bring in external content as references of like, these are the things we actually care about and are using in what we discuss as we're discussing these concepts. And, here's a link to go check it out.
Thank you. And show notes would be on the podcast description and the YouTube video description and those kinds of places.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, let's go ahead and Benjamin, if you can make a note on the show notes and then bring that over into our show circle, that would be great, because that's something we haven't talked about yet, like how to actually represent some of our bibliography inside the show notes. And then also, Benjamin, if there's anything specifically that comes out as an action or determination, if you can make that very categorically distinct from a formatting standpoint, probably bold and highlighted, so that it's very easy for me to review back and prepare for the next one. So we don't have any clear task assigned, but I believe that I'll probably be the ultimate steward of this December watch party, and that we're going to do it as a determination that we've just landed on. Okay, so the second chunk here is about membership expansion, and the very first thing to look at is the formation of our ambassador circle. And so I'd love to take about 10 minutes or so to open that conversation up collectively, to say, and we already kind of skimmed the first layer of this, so we don't have to say all the obvious stuff. But what are our next steps in developing our ambassador circle? How do we invite members to say, yes, I want to be an ambassador? How do we empower them to enroll members in the network or enroll promotional partners in sharing about One Nation? How do we celebrate them as they make progress? Like, I feel like we really want to kind of create an archetype of a One Nation ambassador and then empower that archetype. I don't think I've ever said it that way before, but I think that's really what we're actually doing, is we're going to let's create that archetype together. What was that going to take?
I'm sure there's probably written information out defining the ambassadorship role. I haven't seen it. I may have it, but I haven't seen it. Could you give me a quickie summary, or is it too hard to quickie?
No, I would say that I think that the ambassadors could probably have like a couple different types of ambassadors. So one is a member who says, I'm ready to just enroll other members. So I think that's kind of one type. Sadiq would represent a kind of a different type of ambassador. Not that he couldn't be that category, but his ambassadorship from our conversations thus far have been committed to connecting us to other leaders of organizations that could potentially be synergistic to us. So that's another kind of form of ambassadorship at the level of partnerships. And I think the third level of ambassador, or the third category of ambassador, would be at the level of like a promotional partners. So let's say that somebody's got a large network of people that could help to extend our network further, and they're asking people to send an email to their email list or make a social media post to their social media audiences. So an ambassador that is securing and empowering promotional partners to be able to make promotional outreach in One Nation's behalf.
So one is actually designated then an ambassador?
So we're all just kind of making this up in real time, Wayne. So there's nothing formal yet. We're actually, here we are right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what I would love to say is we are just about to launch our ambassador program, of which I've kind of been holding the seed for. And I know that Andrew was on this call last week, and he and I and Christopher we're planning to have the first instance of a circle conversation, kind of starting to unpack these questions. So I love here. I think that, Christopher, the 3 categories you named feel appropriate. And, you know, some of the things that Andrew and I have talked about is, and I also want to bring in Leslie, because Leslie also has interest in this area, is like, what do these ambassadors need in order to share confidently with others and invite others into this field of membership? And so now identify these, want to just roll those. My next step in thinking is, how do we reach out and just start gather input? I really feel like creating some polls or asking our members some questions on like what would be helpful, what could help make you a better ambassador for One Nation, what have you found to work well, what materials might you want that could better support you in talking about One Nation to your friends or sharing it with your network. That's where my thinking is currently.
My sense is that if we were to open up a Facebook group for One Nation ambassadors and then just invite Andrew and Sadiq, potentially Brad, maybe Wayne, and a handful of other people, Leslie, then you'd have a space to have an internal conversation with ambassadors. And we can also post on the members group to ask some of these questions to members at large, including, we're opening up an ambassador program, who would like to be included on that group. And then it just kind of gets you everybody in one space a little bit. And then that could be a space to just mull out the rest of this conversation, get extremely practical and tactical and developmental. So that's my suggestion on one of the next steps. So there's just a space for the conversation to go further. I've got a thumbs up from Andrew on a yes to ambassador space. And what I really love about a Facebook group too is it creates an identity threshold. It's a very, very small identity threshold, but it's still substantial. So you can kind of like make a post on the group to say who considers themselves an ambassador or would like to learn more about ambassador or be a One Nation ambassador. And just to click into that group, it kind of like creates a little identity frame for themselves. Like, oh, I am a One Nation ambassador. And then that's the beginning of the process of further participation and getting them to be ready to take actions as an ambassador.
Someone who gets asked to use my network often, I feel like we're sort of carving out what the membership offering is, and I feel like this is a Sadiq, we get special benefits. It's sort of like a super member category, and we use the word but and I think it's just important to discuss what to that are, just like what if it's a membership, so that there can be a real tangible value. Number one, we're all doing this because we believe in the movement, but 2, there is some value in the designation of being a super member or an ambassador. Okay, so that just needs to be articulated.
Yep. So we're kind of listening out, and Benjamin, for notes, we've got like, what does it mean to be an ambassador? What do you get by being an ambassador? And how do we empower our ambassadors? And I think how do we invite people into officially saying, yes, I want to be an ambassador? And you probably need the first 3 things before you can do the 4th thing. But ultimately, we want to get to this place where we can make a very explicit invitation that people can respond yes or not yet to. And then they just can respond yes, and then they're categorically in that space and container. And then some way to be able to celebrate them. That's the kind of 5th thing. How do we celebrate them and say, look, Sadiq just did this, and you know, whether it's a major new partnership or Wayne just enrolled a new member, you know, and it's like, you know, celebrating all the different scales of value that the ambassadors are creating. So I think we kind of did our 10 minutes on the ambassador program. And Sophia, maybe you and I can kind of ground in the next steps together, which is something like a group and something like a post. And I feel like it's coming from your voice, very likely. And we'll decide on that together.
Yeah, and I'm going to just add recognition. Recognition is one of the most important aspects of that one. Okay.
Yeah. What I was calling celebration, I really mean recognition. So then as far as an action goes, let's say, Sophia, in the next week, we will metabolize that and probably take some action, and either have taken the action or be ready to take the action by our next week's membership circle. Awesome. Thanks, Benjamin, for capturing that.
Previously, you created a document called like Talking Points. It was an ambassador support artifact.
Yeah, it's like the 101, right?
Yeah, I was trying to find that the other day and I couldn't. So
a web page on member resources.
Oh, fantastic. And I was thinking,
if we had that page better organized, you'd be able to find it in the table at the top.
I wasn't actually looking on the website. I was digging through Google Drive and stuff, but I was thinking, what, you know, maybe a member activity, and I'm willing to do this with some notes, is updating those talking points with the new information that's coming out of the committees and circles. Like, you know, here's what we're discovering are the actual benefits of membership. Here are all the different things that we're about to roll out. Here are the perks of being an ambassador and or a member. And, you know, just kind of really emphasizing all the different amazing talking points that we have. So if I had notes for that, I would be happy to update the webpage.
I'll take that action to update that talking points element, and it'll be part of what we're rolling out with this ambassadors program. So let's just add a note there, Benjamin, that a subset of that will be for me to do that. And thanks, Sadiq, for your comment around Chris Decker and Uplift Connect. These connections are what Sadiq brings forward all day long, and so I want, you know, him to be supported in doing so and recognized, because it's like, it's not a little thing for him to make these great organizational introductions and to be such a connector. So there's like this, Sadiq, this is kind of like the ambassadors program recognition 1.0. It's just thumbs up on a Zoom, and we'll just go up from there. Okay.
Well, the only problem is Uplift Connect doesn't exist anymore, so he's a little outdated.
Oh. All right, we'll talk about that offline. I know he just got off a call with somebody. So let's move into this next piece, which is promotion of our episodes. So each of these episodes of the show, which is basically me bringing somebody online and hashing out a very specific topic that they're a leader in, and showing how that integrates to different fields and what the political implications of that are. I'm not getting into a lot of detail right now, but it's very enthusiastic about the show. We have phenomenal guests already lined up, and those shows are kind of our primary piece of marketing for membership at this time. So when the episode comes out, you know, we'll be able to promote those and help the people that we know that have interests aligned with the episode content and topic to be able to get and watch it. And so our ambassadors and all of our members will have these denominations of promotional currency, or of kind of outreach currency, where it'll be very easy for them to just like, hey, watch this episode, or they can share this episode or whatever. And then at the end of the episode, it's inviting people into membership. So we're creating a funnel here, and we're with really phenomenal content. So I just want to really name that in the membership circle, that like that the membership ambassador program is kind of like the like kind of analog, like one-off, old school talking, networking stuff for membership expansion. And then the show is going to be kind of like the media version of doing that, so that and then those two things working together in concert will be our primary forces for building and growing and expanding the membership base. So I want to make sure you guys are really clear on how strategically we want to use those shows as levers and mechanisms for creating additional awareness and exposure to One Nation, as well as invitation into membership to it. Any questions or thoughts on that? It's very early stage. There's going to be a lot more coming. I just want to kind of provide a sense of orientation around the topic.
Do you want to share what your thoughts are for a first episode?
We've got a couple episodes lined up. One is an episode on digital democracy with a congressional candidate in the Bay Area, and looking at the transparency, accountability, and integrity that's able to come online for the future of government when we move democracy online.
Cool.
Another episode that we've got under development is with Nick Headland from Eudaimonia, and he's just finishing his PhD, developing a body of philosophy he refers to as what does he call it? Visionary realism.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so it's a philosophical frame that that's an academic way of creating a category for exactly what we're doing. We are perfectly visionary realists according to his kind of novel category he's invented.
Cool.
And so that'll be a really kind of fun, intellectual episode. And then we've got another member named Simon Mont, who you may or may not know, who's an expert in healing our relationship to racism and interracial traumas and collective traumas and healing. So really deep content at the level of One Nation healing, social repair, individual repair. So those are 3 examples. We've got a very long list of other topics that really have I've got one other one I'll mention right now just for the fun of it, because you asked. A gentleman who's made a tremendous amount of progress in showing how we can move health services from traditional health systems into community and actually heal the diet-related chronic disease in community, treat the depression in community, and actually reactivate our communities as the primary domain whereby we have our health services met. So profound implications on health, on health systems, on financial realities of America, moving into the massive health expenses, continue to maintain our existing forms of healthcare. So that's another example that hits a whole other sector. But again, all the principles are all integrated.
Please add Fu under regenerative economic systems.
100%. That's it. Okay. Yeah. We'll have that episode. I will reach out to him in the next couple of weeks to talk about the show and schedule an episode.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So we are winding down to our last topic, which is a numerical goal. I'm just going to name this to create some collective coherence on the topic. A numerical goal that's contrived creates no value whatsoever, right? Like, oh, we're going to have 10,000 members by whatever, and then no one does anything about it. And also organizationally operating without any type of quantitative goals gives us no way to be able to work towards something explicitly and kind of get a sense for being on track and compare our results to our expectations and create the feedback loops and all that kind of stuff. So I think that we're getting to the moment in time where we want to start to envision very concrete, attainable, but still aspirational numerical goals as far as extending our membership base as one example of one, as well as our total financial reoccurring revenue from members, which those aren't synonymous because people can select different give amounts. So looking at like those goals over certain periods of time, and then getting really coherent as our circle, and then bringing that coherence of, the 8 of us to our membership base and say, we have set these goals, does anybody have feedback on that kind of a thing? And ultimately creating a sense of collective coherence where, obviously not all of our members are going to participate in the goal setting process, but maybe a couple dozen of them, really feel connected to it. And then we can use that throughout our company culture in the weeks and months to come to refer back to those quantitative goals. Would love to get a sense for if anyone has any thoughts on the topic of moving towards quantitative membership and revenue goals as an organization.
I could start by telling people where we're at. We have, I believe, 195 registered members. As per your comment earlier, Wayne, there's a nice split. About half of them are active and half of them are less active. We have recurring revenue of approximately $1,500 from subscriptions, and then approximately $300 from new member activations every month. So we're at also just under $2,000 for monthly recurring revenue at this moment.
Thank you for that baseline.
Well, I would like to add that I think I'm looking at starting an Austin chapter soon. And when I do that, I want to take on the responsibility myself of setting a goal for myself of bringing in additional members. I don't know what that number is right now, but I think as chapter heads, we ought to have that obligation to ourselves and to the party. And then secondly, I would say that the members that come in hopefully will be enthusiastic about the party and what our goals are, and will also assist in bringing in new members. So I'd like to kind of start at the party, at the level here, the chapter, and then increase it from there. And it could be small amounts. I mean, I don't want to make it burdensome on anybody, but if you look at what's going on in this country, a lot of people are just disgusted with what's going on, and some are very positional out there with the polarity that is going on, and those people may not be reachable. But there are a lot of people that are still up in the air about what's going on in this country, and I think it's an excellent opportunity for us to look for those people who are awakening to what's going on.
I really appreciate you bringing in this idea of nesting a personal ambassador goal in relationship to the organizational goal. That I think is really powerful. And let's say we had a goal of 3,000 members by such and such time, and you said you were going to help to register 15, in that period of time or whatever. Then we're just actually parsing out that responsibility. And then you stepping up and saying, I'm committed to doing everything I can to enroll my quantitative number, then as an act of leadership to inspire other people to do so as well. And I feel like that's probably one of the integrated elements of ambassador program, is that an ambassador actually doesn't just say, oh yeah, I'll chat about membership. They say, no, I want to enroll 2 new members every month or something like that. And now that they quantify their participation, and of course they might exceed it or fall below it, but at least there's something quantitatively to kind of come back into alignment to. So I really love how the goal integrates with the ambassadorship program. Benjamin, I know that you've had a bit of process around this. Anything you want to bring forward on the topic?
My primary mode of thinking about it has been related to the show promotion and setting targets based on the audiences that we'll be reaching through the production of the show. And so that's been where I've been primarily focusing my thinking. And a lot of that is there's sort of this chicken and egg relationship between promotion of each episode generating new recurring revenue, which then allows us to do more promotion and bring more people on. So I think we're going to start running these tests as we have the episodes out, and we're going to have much clearer data on what our conversion rates are with each episode.
Yeah. Tracking that. I think one of the big questions to ask to orient this conversation, not be totally lost, is what's the timeline that makes sense to be thinking around, right? Like, it's not the end of the year, because that's not the timeline. It could potentially be the end of January. Benjamin, I know you've used the time frame of the end of March. We could use the end of March as kind of the end of Q1. Gives us a lot of time to kind of work and build towards that, and maybe have like an end of January into February kind of subdivision of it. But with the end of March as a timeline to orient around, I like that it's far enough that we can really get organized around it, but it's still kind of tight and gripped to the immediacy. So that, I think, is one of the first questions to answer, and just kind of floating that by the group. Do you guys have a sense around end of March as a time frame to orient around? Does that feel right?
I was thinking about a 3-month, goal of 1,000 members. That's what's coming through for me.
Thanks. So basically, if we do the end of March, then we have December to kind of prepare, if you will. And then we have the announcement video, which is currently scheduled to go out on January 1st, somewhere between the 1st and the 20th. But we think it might be ready for the 1st. And then that basically is this trigger effect that then helps to catalyze, mechanistically towards fulfilling our membership goal. So I like how it puts everything in relationship to each other. And then we're really in this 3-month sprint of achieving, this membership threshold. And then, of course, it's not about the numbers. All the things that we do are in service to creating a tremendous amount of value for people. So I'm really feeling good about this March 31st as our timeline, which eliminates a pretty major variable. Any other perspectives on timeline orientation?
Well, I think that March 31st is great. I'll be working a lot sooner and faster than that, I hope. And I realize the holidays are here. That's a time where everybody is extremely busy. You don't want to be a pest or a nuisance. But I think time is of the essence, quite frankly. So I'm going to be working hard starting tonight.
Awesome. It sounds like you're one of our ambassadors, Wayne.
Okay.
Let's just be this for the fun of it. Wayne, with the ambassador program not being fully defined yet, will you be a One Nation ambassador?
Sure.
Can we give him a collective thumbs up as some recognition for stepping across that threshold? Yeah. Sadiq.
I've already where to send my check.
Hey, do we like a concept for these ambassadors would be to drive people to an orientation call? Is that possible, that we could sort of have a monthly call where you field questions and stuff? I know you're going to have videos that do some of that, but again, looking for ways to make it easy for us to onboard people.
Yeah, we can create whatever we want for sure. And if ambassadors would want a 90-minute call each month to ask questions that I might be able to help to provide rapid fire answers to, then we can totally do that. We can also, in the members group, have people ask questions as FAQs, and then provide written responses to those that can end up on our website as part of evergreen materials. So there's a lot of ways we can get this done, but talking to our ambassadors and bringing them together collectively, I think it's something.
I know we're somebody mute, please. I know we're at the end of our time here, but I just want to throw this concept out. You asked, what do we need to make sure that we're ready to bring our people to that? And I just feel like there needs to be, that there's an ecosystem that they see that they're joining that's populated, that there's already hundreds of members. There's already calls with people on
There's already these forums. So I just like, it's just show that the ecosystem is populated and moving.
Yeah.
That's important.
Thank you, Brad. Benjamin, for our notes, I think just manifesting the ecosystem, both with the map and the Kumu, that only further reinforces the value, so people can actually literally see the network that's there. Let's rapid fire these last couple things. Let's go to Sadiq. He's coming in.
I'd like to add to that list a monthly meditation. I really think that's important. No one is doing that out there, and we are. And there are a lot of people that I know that would love that.
It is on the website currently. Yeah. Sadiq.
So the question that was coming into my mind before like answering the quantitative number response is, if we were to be mapping out member pushes and goals associated with each phase of a membership push, what would we call this phase push, and what are the goals associated with this particular push? Like that for me is sort of like the deeper question, because like what's the trajectory of the full party right now? And so like as it relates to that larger vision, what are we specifically?
Yeah. So I think that one way of thinking about that is calling everything in 2019 pre-launch. And then to get not sexy as a starting point, we could call the quarters of 2020 launch phase 1, launch phase 2, launch phase 3, and launch phase 4. We could obviously name them and fluff them up a bit, but at least that way we got some blocks to be working with to create a narrative and a sense of context. So I think that what we're talking about going into January is stepping into launch phase 1. And now we're doing the final things to prepare for launch phase 1, including this conversation.
And is that specifically, let's say, to like build our committees, like meaning like what are some of the thematics? Do you get what I'm trying to say? Like, what are the thematics of this push? That's what I'm trying to understand.
Considering we're a minute over, I just wanted to kind of at least like drop that a high level segregation of phases, and we can kind of keep unpacking that from there. Yeah. Okay, so let's say we're done with content and we're just in a couple moments here of final shares or anything to integrate as we are wrapping up our time together. What was the impact of this call on you, and do you have any final things to share?
Well, I think it's been a great call, and I love being part of formulating the growth of this party. And I think just having that word launch in there, I like that. Every time I've heard it, people, I think, would be interested in launching, being part of something new and different in this country that fits their needs and their values. So I like that.
Thanks, Wayne. Yep. Just gonna tag Andrew, just in case you can hear us. And if you want to jump on audio and say anything before we wrap together, we know you've been listening to our call. No need if that's not a fit.
Hey.
Yeah, hey, bud.
Hey, yeah. I'm just appreciative of the different voices and ideas, and I have a lot of thoughts on brand ambassador that I'm excited to ideate on with you and Sophia. Yeah, just feeling energized.
Awesome. All right.
I'm good.
Yeah.
I just want to say thanks. Really appreciated this call, and I got a jam, so thank you.
Great. All right. Well, let's go ahead and just take a breath together, and let's close out in a good way. Let's just kind of take an inhale, a full exhale, and let's just let the information and the energy of this exchange just kind of resonate in our bodies for a moment. Thank you, everybody, for being a part of our second membership circle session, and we'll keep moving this all forward.
Thanks, Kristen.
Hey, see you guys next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Hey, thank you.